I'm Leslie Sommers,
I'm Janice Sommers.
and together we write the Amulet series. It's the first book is called Breed Reborn, and it's a story about a girl from New Jersey. She discovers that she's a descendant of a Scottish weather goddess, and she needs to find a magical weather controlling amulet to help control the weather before the world is plagued into eternal darkness, because that's what the other side of the family wants to do. It's a trilogy, and there's one novella. The first two books are out right now. The third book comes out in the novella comes out in December, and we're super excited because the third book is with the editor, so that'll be coming out probably early of 2025.
That's actually really exciting.
Yeah, we're super excited. It wraps up the whole series.
What was your inspiration for the Amulet series?
It was Leslie's inspiration.
Yeah.
Kind of sucked me into it.
So my dad was hard of hearing, and we live behind a train station, and there was something one day that my mom said to my dad, and he didn't hear her. It wasn't anything insulting or whatever, but he didn't hear her correctly, and he got angry because he couldn't hear her. And the more he got frustrated and a little, incensed by it, it was summer and sunny outside, and there was like a dark cloud that moved by, and that covered all of the sun, like the angrier he got. And then she repeated herself, and he heard her clearly, and he went, oh, okay, I didn't hear you right, and started calming down. And as he was calming down, the cloud moved out of the way and the sun reappeared. And I was washing dishes watching this, and I just looked at my dad, and I kind of looked back at the sun, and I looked at my dad, and I'm like, I know he didn't control that. I know, but that was too coincidental. And, but like, what if he did? And I finished washing dishes and sat down and wrote the prologue and the first chapter, like right then and there.
That's amazing. That's actually cool how something just happens in daily life that you're like, oh, that sparks my story.
Yeah.
What drew you both to writing?
I'm sorry?
What drew you both to writing?
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know how to answer that question.
We're a little confused.
Yeah, I think.
Did you always know you wanted to write be like
You did,
some
yes.
writers
Oh, yeah, I think I think I've always wanted to be a writer. I think I was like in elementary school, and they asked at one point, like, what do you want to do? And I said I wanted to be a computer teacher because it was super exciting. And then in the summer I was going to be an author, and then it just kind of stuck to be an author the entire time. My mom, on the other hand, you didn't want to, this was not your dream.
No, it wasn't something I thought about. It just morphed into it.
But still really, really cool that you both have published the book, your series, and it's coming to a conclusion next year as well.
Yeah, we're really excited for it.
What was your process for writing the Amulet series? Did you sort of write the first book first, or did you sort of plot out the all the books that you wanted to write?
Both. Before I enlisted mom, I had sketched out what I wanted the series to look like in each book, and I have those notes still, so it's kind of funny because we rely on them a lot when we were writing. So I knew what the first book was going to look like, and I knew what the second book needed to hit upon to be able to continue the story forward. And I knew what the third book had to have all wrapped up to finish the series. So I guess it was halfway through the first book. What was it? I kept running to you.
You kept coming out and saying, Mom, what would they do at this? What would happen now? What do you think would happen next? And then finally she said, why don't you just write the book with me?
So she already wrote. We discussed all the story ideas already, so I was just doing the execution of it.
That's really cool. What was your approach to world and character building? How did you come up with your characters?
We didn't really world build. It's actually magical realism, so it takes place in modern day. There's, running water and cell phones, like modern travel. And so that was easy in that case. We didn't have to world build too hard. In the way of creating the characters, though, we wanted characters that were authentic to what we knew. I have teenagers in my life. I used to babysit when they were little things, and now they're 17, and 21 years old and things of that nature. So I would constantly go back and say things like, so like, what's going on in school today? And like kind of see what they were doing and put that in the story. And then the main character is Bridget. She has a really good relationship with her mom, like we have a good relationship. So the mom character is based off of my mother.
It's always good that you can sort of model characters after the people you know in your life. It makes it feels like it makes it a little bit easier to hit their traits and their personalities in the writing.
It does. And in fact, we've like named characters, right?
We've named characters for people we know. So we keep telling, somebody says, "Can I be a character?" Yeah, sure. We're going to kill you off, or yeah, sure, you're the bad guy.
Yeah, it gets a little dicey sometimes. Everybody can't be like a white knight.
Definitely true. It would be too full of characters who aren't really moving the plot forward.
Yeah.
Which of the characters do you relate to the most and why?
Gee, I wonder who you relate to.
Mom. There's a lot of me in the character, things I do or things I say. So she wrote that in, that kind of stuff. But
I relate to Bridget, the main character, and I relate to another character. His name is Kalen. Kalen is a jerk, and he's specifically like a bully in the first book, and he has character growth, and that's the point of him. But he just gets all the really fun, sassy lines that I would say in real life. So he has a little special place in my heart. But the way Bridget acts in certain situations was very much how I would act when I was that age. So both of them are a part of me.
Which character is the easiest to write their dialogue?
oh, that's a you question.
Bridget.
Yeah.
I think Bridget would be the easiest of characters because it's first person in her perspective. So I can get into her mindset easier than I think sometimes some of the other characters, just because I have that closer connection to her. Our novella takes place from Kay's point of view, and that was a really fun thing to explore because I got to break completely from Bridget, and I got to dive into that really like sarcastic, I don't care about anything mentality for the novella, and it was a lot of fun.
Would you ever do a book with two points of views then, with the switching, or you like just sticking to the one perspective throughout the story?
I don't know. We haven't, but we
haven't thought about it. I like reading books with multiple point of views, but I personally like writing only one point of view. I mean, maybe we'll branch out one day, but right now we're comfortable with just the one point of view.
Yeah.
Want to get that sorted out really well before we move on.
Well, it's hard to say because, as you think about something or she starts to write and we discuss it, sometimes we don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
So it could very well be a two point of view at some point.
Yeah.
How has writing and publishing a book changed the way you see yourselves?
Well, we see ourselves as authors.
Yeah, but I think it's less about that. It's more of, so I went to college to become an author. Like my degree is in English and creative writing. Like I've always wanted to do this. So now I'm not just a student writing short stories, I'm a published author, and I've become a little bit more nuanced in the business, which I think has definitely changed my perception of could I actually do this or not.
It's always based on experiences and what your feedback and everything is, whether it pushes you forward or you have to fight a little bit more just to take it on board, but then also brush it off because they don't know your story like you do.
Yeah, it's true. But it's a lot of fun talking to people about the book, and we recognize that the book is not going to be for everybody. So if somebody says like this is not my thing, we're not upset by it. We get it. The next person might say it is their thing, so it's fine.
Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
All of them.
We're big readers in this house. My mother was a big reader, so I was a big reader, and because I am, she is. So, we read a whole bunch of authors, from horror to fantasy to romance. Depends on what you're in the mood for.
Yeah, we're mood readers for sure. For sure.
I try not to be, but I always go back to the if I'm in a slump or anything, I would just go, nah, I'm just gonna go back to which books I actually know I can actually get through and sort of refresh myself. So
Yeah.
definitely.
That's what I do. So I was in uh excuse me, I was in a reading slump for it just felt like forever. You're right, like even a week can just feel like years in the Bookstagram community. And now I'm on a kick. I went back and started rereading books that I had already read that I really liked, just to kind of read for fun again, and not just for a feeling of I have to read this for a post or read it for a review or whatever. And it started to help me branch out. And so that was kind of nice. It kicked me out of the reading slump that I was in.
I always like the books that like yep, this is comfort read for me. I love those books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your most valuable piece of advice you've been given about writing?
Content editors. They are
Yeah.
worth their weight in gold.
Gold. Yeah. Because we've read some books that have not been edited for the content, and sometimes it's a little bit hard to get through. You know, I mean, they have line editors and that kind of stuff, but they're looking at sentence structure as opposed, but a content editor is going to look like, does this make sense?
They look at the plot
The
lines
plot
and the
lines.
character development and
Yeah.
the bread of the book. And that's really what you need as an author, because we're dealing with we're all a little bit, and I don't mean this like evilly across the board, but slightly self-involved when it comes to it, right? Because we feel like we're writing this excellent book, or we're feeling we're writing this terrible trashy book. We can't win. So having a third person come out and say like, hey, this is a great idea, but this is how you strengthen it, is very validating. But also you feel very supported. And that's really nice as an author if you're struggling. And it's a way that it's in a content editor, and the relationship between them and an author is truly something special. And it's sort of like, in a way, finding a therapist, right? Like, that you have to.
It's very important.
Yes.
Because they'll come back with, you can make this stronger, or is this really what you wanted to say? Maybe you should change the sentence, or, something. There was some question because in New Jersey, there's a food.
Oh.
Northern New Jersey calls it Taylor ham. Southern New Jersey call it pork roll. So the girl is from Southern New Jersey.
So she called it pork roll, and everyone kept going like, this is not, you have to like change it out. And they were like, it was edited like 3 or 4 times, and we were like, no, that is a regional thing on purpose. Like, that is meant to be in there. So like there is stuff like that, but in the way of like, if you're not content or you're not happy with the person who's editing your book and you don't agree with a lot of the stuff they're saying, that's probably not the editor for you. So the advice that we always got was, they're worth their weight in gold, and we have learned that lesson and absolutely agree with that advice.
Was the professional editing really important to your book's development?
Yes.
Yes.
150%.
Yeah.
Because the first draft of a book always is trash. It is, no matter what, it is a mess.
You might think it's wonderful, but when someone else reads it that, is looking for the content and the development and all of that, you're always a little surprised, go, oh.
But either way, it's just, like the first book, the very first draft of the first book was just outdated. There were things that we would put in there that were popular at the time, but then we didn't get published for years later. So the references were outdated, and not in a like, we're referencing 80s kind of way. We were referencing things from like 4 years ago. So it just feels wrong. And so she went through and was very careful about acknowledging those things, saying like, hey, maybe you should rethink this, or this isn't as popular anymore. Do you still want to keep it? And so she helped strengthen the story. And I literally wrote back an email to her after our first round of edits saying like, thank you so much. You made me fall in love with our book again.
That's amazing.
Which is hard, because if you have to read your book over and over and over again, it's like, ooh.
It gets you get to know the story really well, really quickly.
But at the same time, you forget it. It's kind of funny because we were continuing the series and we couldn't remember. I couldn't remember eye color. I had to keep going back to the second or the third or the first book to be like, did I say what this hair color is? Did he have a last name? And I just don't remember it right now. It was, you remember the overarching story, but the little finite details can get a little dicey.
What advice would you give to a writer working on their first book?
Don't give up.
Don't give up. Just write it.
Yeah, you can always edit something that's been written. You cannot edit a blank page. So just put whatever you want down, and that could just always be fixed.
Yeah.
That's actually perfect advice. And if you got the idea, just write it, really.
Yeah, I actually more so me because I'm more involved in social media than she is, but I tell all authors, especially indie authors, like you can reach out to me at any time. My DMs are always open. I would love to help people. I've actually I've beta read for people. I've been an ARC reader for people. I have a network of authors that we all rely on each other, and at any given time we'll take a phone call or a text message and just, hey, I wrote myself into a corner. What do I do? And then, one of us is like, kill somebody off or blow them up. And it's like, I can't do that, but I can do this. And all of a sudden, like now you have the inspiration to keep going.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend, continue writing. And if you're struggling with that, reach out to an author that you admire, or especially an indie author. I reach out to non-indie authors all the time and they respond back to me. So, we're a very supportive community about that.
Perfect advice. Who's your biggest supporter and of your writing outside of each other?
Oh, that was our answer. Out of each other. We can't say each other.
Okay. I have to say, I have 3 brothers and they all had the book, and my second brother read the book. Now this book is not for an adult male. It's,
I mean, it can be. We're not those people who are like, it's a Judy Blume book. Nobody can read it if you're not over, if you're over 18 or whatever.
But he came back and he's not a reader. He's nothing, but he was reading the book, like he said, every night before he goes to sleep. He read the book and he says, this book is really good. So that is like, because I know him, I know that he's not a reader. This is a book that I didn't think he would be interested in the whole thing, but he read it and came back with some really nice things.
And then for me, whenever I'm struggling and I'm not sure if this is something like the storyline I want to continue, or I'm having a rough time, I have 2 friends in particular who have said to me outside, like in the wild of the world, like we've run into each other at the grocery store or something, and they've been like, did you finish it yet? Like, when is the next one coming out? Because I need to know what happens. And, I think to myself, if I ever get down on myself or I get the imposter syndrome, which, is quite common as an author, we all just feel like we're frauds. But I just think about those 2 people who have actively come over or messaged me or called me and said, I finished the book. I need to know what's going to happen. What's the next thing? Where's this going to go? Whatever. And I just tell myself, even if nobody else buys the book, I'll just write it for those 2 people. And that really, really helps me keep going when I'm struggling.
It's always great I think that's why some like book events and everything are always perfect for authors, because they actually get to interact with their readers, and they don't always have to go. They might feel awkward just randomly messaging them to say, I've read your book. When's the next one coming out as well? And
sorry.
No, it's right.
I was gonna say, I've seen a lot of authors recently. Oh goodness, who was the one I read? I don't know if it was Madison Wright. I think it was Madison Wright. She apparently went through something personal and she wrote about it in her book, like in her acknowledgments or whatever. And she said, thank you to everybody who came back and said you would be willing to wait for me to get through this before I wrote my next book. You were willing to stand by me for this. And there's another author who went through again a tragedy, and she took like 2 years off, and she just announced that the series that she had started, she has a new book coming out for sure in December, and I already pre-ordered it because I love her writing. But she has another book that is the next book in the series that she stopped like 2-3 years ago, and she did like a little teaser. And I pretty much fangirled hard about it. And all the comments underneath were like, we love this. We can't wait for you to come back. We're so excited, like all these things. And I think that because readers are so supportive of authors, even when we go through something traumatic or something that is personal that does require us to take a break, it's really nice that we hear that. And I don't have the same, personally, I don't have that same widespread reach. We do conventions and things of that nature. And it's always so flattering to hear somebody come up and say, you know, like, I love your stuff. I can't wait to read the next thing, you know, because
A stranger.
if you're just struggling for whatever reason that day and you can't write, it's a nice little boost to your confidence. Like, okay, maybe I'm not as bad as I think. So that support is really, really needed from the readers.
You know, you'll always get support from friends and family, but it's nice to find somebody at a, you know, a con that'll come up and said, I was here last year, I bought your first book. I couldn't wait. Is your second book out? And we can always say, now it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were asking for it and we had to give them, oh, it's with the author, it's it's with the, you know, the content editor, it's with the publisher, it's not me.
But
I
it's
don't
in
have it.
process, which is more important than saying like, it's not written.
It's not written. Yeah.
And my final question is, and this might be slightly mean, is if you had to describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Describe myself in 3 words. Oh,
Organized,
feisty. Fierce.
dedicated.
Yeah.
No, there's a 4.
That's no 3 words each.
Oh,
Let's mix
come
all
on.
together. No, but I think I would go with organized as well. I'm highly, highly
She's
organized.
highly organized. We
Like-
both are.
Like I'm like weirdly at a level that she's not. I'm like serial killer level organized. Like organized for sure. What's yours? So I'm feisty, fierce, and organized. You're organized.
Dedicated and funny.
Yeah, for sure. For funny. We're funny people. We say.
We think we're funny.
We think we're funny.
That's all that really matters sometimes, though.
Exactly.